Hey there everybody, Nate Brown here, and welcome to section 9 of my tutorial on how to make a basic animation rig in Blender. In this tutorial we're going to be creating custom shapes for a lot of our bones, and we're going to be hiding a lot of bones as well. So when we're done with our rig after this video, it's going to look very sleek and very nicely put together. It's going to look like what you would expect any other professional rig to look like. Most of the things that we're going to do in this video today are going to be kind of unnecessary. They're mostly aesthetic things, although changing a lot of our bones to custom shapes also makes it a lot easier to grab onto them, and it makes life easier for your animators or yourself if you're doing the animating. Before we get into all of that though, the first thing I want to take care of is we need to add one more bone to our rig. What we're missing here is a master controller for our entire rig. So we need a way of moving this guy around on the scene just in case we need to put him over here and start his animations from over here or anything like that. We don't want to have to grab both his feet, his IK poles, all of his IK hands and move all of that at the same time. We just want to be able to grab one controller and do all of that. So what we can do is we're just going to add a bone right at the origin point of our scene, right in the center there. So let's put our 3D cursor there. So do Shift S, cursor to world origin, and then you have to be in edit mode. The edit mode for your armature, that is. And then let's do add single bone. That's going to put that right in the center there. Select that new bone and let's rename that to, let's call it master underscore controller. Perfect. We're going to uncheck deform on that as well. And now we need to parent everything to it that needs to be parented. So let's look at our hierarchy for this. Collapse down your root so that we just have everything on the same level here, and basically everything we see here is going to be parented to the master controller. We don't want any of this stuff floating around. We want this to move all of that around. So we can just start with the root, and then we can, whoops, if we're doing it with the hierarchy, you want to do control select to just select the two you want, and then we can do control P, keep offset. I'm going to do everything in the hierarchy because it'll be a little bit easier than selecting everything in there. So then we're just going to grab everything from this list here and parent it under the new master controller we just made. Perfect. So now we've got everything connected to this master controller, everything that wasn't already parented to something. So if we go into pose mode, we grab our master controller. Now we can move our entire guy around without having to go in and grab multiple different things. We can just move everything with this one controller, which is perfect. That's exactly what we want. Now that we've got that taken care of, we can really start getting into custom shapes and what those are. So let's go into object mode. And while in object mode, let's hit add, and we want to do mesh and circle. Now if you move that out from where your 3D cursor is, it literally is just giving you a little 2D circle here. And that's what we're going to use to create all of our controllers on our guy here. So what we can do is, if we can just put that anywhere. Let's just put that, let's move this up to here. Let's start with the spine. Alright, now select your armature, so just click anywhere on that. Go into edit mode. Go into pose mode. And let's select just any piece of your spine. I'm just going to start with the bottom piece here. And what we can do is in our menu over here, let's go into your bone properties if you're not already there, and go into viewport display. And you'll see this option here for custom object. This is what allows us to change the look of our bone. So right now it looks like this, but if we go into custom object and circle, we didn't rename our circle, so it's just called circle. You just select that. Now it's going to look just like this circle that we created here. But it's still selectable like our bone. It still works just like the bone. You can move that around just like you could before we changed that. So that's kind of the idea of what we're doing here. Now obviously this is oriented a little bit incorrectly, so let's go back into object mode and select our circle. And we can adjust that with our circle here. There's no way to change the orientation directly from the bone there, but I will show you a trick for that in just a second. So you'll see if you rotate this guy, it doesn't change the way that looks, right? But if we go into edit mode, we can select all of these vertices, and if we do it if we do any of our changes via edit mode and selecting the vertices, then it will actually affect that controller there. Now, what you could do is you could go in here to your side view and just rotate this until it's perfectly straight like this. But then the problem with that is that if we go back into pose mode and we go to add this to another bone here, its orientation will be off, and we can't really change that here. You'd have to make one of these for every single bone, which would be kind of a pain, and we get a little messy. So what we can do instead is, I'm just going to clear out our custom objects here. What we can do is, there is an option when you've got your custom object selected for a custom shape transform, which allows us to put a new bone on and use that new bone as kind of the pointer for how this custom object should be oriented. So we're going to do that for our spine because they're all at these weird orientations. We're not going to have to do that for everything. For example, our root is perfectly oriented up and down. We won't have to change anything with that. And even if it weren't, it's probably going to have its own custom object, so we could orient that any way we want. The feet also, they're oriented in a way that we won't have to change anything with that. But we're going to have to do that for all of the spine. We'll probably do it for the neck and the head as well, and I think we're going to do it for all of the FK arm pieces as well, because they have a little bit of strange orientations. We want those to all be, we want to just be able to use one controller for each part of the arm and be able to have those all oriented the way we want. So I'm going to take our custom object off of this bone for now. We're going to go into edit mode, and we're going to add a bunch of bones. The important thing with these bones is that they're all going to be oriented in the exact same way. They're all going to be non-deforming bones, and then we'll name them all. They're not super important bones, but we want to name them just so that they don't get confused with other things. Okay, we can grab a few of these at the same time. I'm just going to shift select a few of these here. You can select all the way to the bottom, but you'll notice when you extrude, it really only does those three there. So we're extruding. We want to extrude directly backwards, so I'm going to hit Y while I'm doing this, and it doesn't really matter how long they are, just make them long enough that you can grab them again. Going to do the same thing with this bottom one, and then let's do the neck and the head controller as well. So I'm going to do this one and this one. While we're at it, we're going to add these for the FK arm as well, so make sure you can see your FK arm. Let's just go into layer 2 here, and we're going to grab the nubs for all of these. Again, we can just extrude those straight back. Perfect. And lastly, I would like to add them for the clavicles as well, because those are kind of a weird orientation. Just gonna move those forward. Actually, you know what? Let's move those back so that we have them at the same orientation as everything with the arm on the arms. Okay, now that we've added all of that, let's go through and rename all of it and turn off deform for everything. And we essentially just want to rename these as the name of the bone that they are the position for, and then the word position. The only problem here is that where we've extruded them from is not exactly the bone that they are going to be attached to. So the names are going to be a little off. This one here, if we start with the bottom spine piece, spine 1, this one actually is the right name, so we can just put the word position after that. I'm going to copy position because we're going to use that a lot here. This next one up, this is going to be spine 2 position. Why don't we copy position with the period there. This one will be spine 3 position. As you can see, the names did get a little shifted. And then this one will be chest position. Whoops. This one will be neck position. And this one will be head position. Okay, let's grab our clavicles here. These ones have the right name here. We just have to put the word position on. Go back into layer 2 to see your FK arm pieces. Looks like this one has the right name. We just have to put position on there. This one does not, though. We got to change this to, whoops, forearm, and then put position on the end. And this one will be wrist. And then we have to do essentially the same thing over on the other side. This one's the bicep, so that one's good. This one is the forearm. And this is the wrist. Okay, so we've got the names corrected. Let's turn off deform on all of these. Okay, we're almost done. The last thing we got to do with these new bones is we have to parent them correctly. So they, the way that they get extruded out, they get parented to the wrong things. They need to be parented to the bones that they are actually going to be the controller for. But you'll see if you go into relations here, you'll see like this one, for example, is parented to the root, but we need it parented to this spine piece here. So we need to select this and then shift select that, parent, and we want to keep offset. Same thing with this one. It's connected to spine 1. We want it parented to spine 2. Perfect. So now we've got those parented correctly. This one should be parented to the chest. This to the neck. And this to the head. These ones to the clavicles instead of the chest. And then back in layer 2, these ones need to be parented to the arm pieces. Perfect. Now back in layer 1, now we can really start building our custom shapes. So let's start with the spine like we were going to originally. Let's add in pose mode. Let's add this circle that we've got here as the custom shape for all of the spine pieces and the neck and the head. So we're going into the bone properties, we're going into relations, nope, sorry, not relations, we're going into viewport display, and then our custom object, we're just going to be circle. We'll rename that in a second. Oop, but we don't want it to be the position, we want it to be the actual bone. Okay, now we need to have them copy the rotation of our position pieces that we've got here. So we're going to go into a custom shape transform, and let's do, this is going to be spine 1 position. This one will be spine 2 position. Spine 3 position. And spine, chest. This one will be chest position. Then we've got neck position. And head position. Excellent. So they're all facing the same direction now, even if they're not the right direction currently. But we can fix that by going into object mode, grabbing our custom object here, which we can rename to, let's call this spine slash neck shape. Excellent. Into edit mode, and we can rotate that to be the position that we want. Now we probably should have started with a fresh one so that it wasn't slightly rotated like that already, but that's okay. We're getting a pretty good position there anyways with it. We kind of flattened that out. Next, what we can do is make a nice little shape for this. So let's go to our top view, and let's change this up a little bit. So I'm going to right now we're selecting with our vertex. That's fine. I want to keep selecting the vertices. I'm going to switch to move, and I'm going to turn on proportional editing, which is this one right here. We can turn that on, and when you start moving something around, this circle is going to show up all around what you're moving, this circle right here. So now what we can do is with your mouse scroll wheel, while you're holding down your move, you can scroll that in and out. And I'm going to scroll that out a bit, and I'm just going to kind of flatten out this back piece, and then I'm going to grab this tip piece here, and I'm going to make this a lot smaller while I'm affecting that, maybe like that, and now we've got kind of a triangle piece, so I think that'll be good. Looking all right for that. Why don't we take the whole thing and just make it a little bit skinnier. Make it down maybe something like that. And then if we go back into object mode, go into our armature, and go into pose mode, there's one more thing we can do in here. We can uncheck bone size. With bone size checked off, the custom shape is going to try to copy the relative size of the bone that it's attached to. But with that unchecked, it's all going to be exactly the same size, which is the size of the custom shape. Now, we can't affect our position in here, but what we can do is affect the scale. So we can change the scale of all of these. So let's say I wanted the chest piece to be a little bit bigger than the spine pieces. I could do that. Something like that is fine. And you can, of course, do whatever you would like with these different custom shapes. If you prefer something else, or if you want to make a fun shape or something like that, that's totally fine. Okay, next what we can do is create our arm controller pieces, which will also be for our clavicle. And I'm just going to make a basic circle for that, actually. Let's do add mesh, and we'll do another circle. Move that up into this kind of a position so we can mess with it if we need to. Let's rename that to arm shape, and then let's select our armature again, go back into pose mode, and we'll grab our we can grab our clavicles to start with, since they're right here. In viewport display, do our custom object to arm shape, and arm shape. Now we want to also change our custom shape transform to clav, this one is the left, so clav left position. Let's uncheck bone size while we're here. And then again, this one's going to be clav right position, and uncheck bone size. Let's head over into, whoops, our second layer, and we can do the same thing for all of our FK arms. Uncheck bone size, and then make sure you do your arm. This is arm FK bicep left position. This is arm forearm FK left position. And this one is arm wrist FK left position. Arm bicep FK right position. arm, forearm, FK right position. And arm, wrist, FK right position. Excellent. So with this layer still selected, let's head over into object mode. Let's grab our circle here that we have. And we're going to want to rotate this so that it's up and down. So what we can do is we do have to do this in edit mode, but then we can, we can rotate. And while you're doing this, just hold down Control so it snaps to the different degrees, and we can get that perfect just like that. And that's looking pretty good. Let's see if it's still looking good for the clavicle. I'm going back into pose mode. Looks good. Looks like it's in the right orientation for the clavicle as well. A little too big, and then for the clavicles and the wrists, probably good for the forearm. Bicep might be a little too small, so you can mess around with the scale, which you just do right like we saw right in this area here. You can change the scale down. So I might do 0.6 for the clavicles. Next, let's make a custom controller for the root. Again, I just want this to be a circle, but it's a different orientation than our arms, so I am going to make a brand new circle. So object mode, add mesh circle. Move this guy up here again. We're going to call this root shape. Click on your armature, go back into pose mode. And just on our root here, our custom object is going to be root shape. And you can uncheck bone size. Looks like it is the wrong orientation, so we'll fix that in a second. We don't have a custom transform for this, so we can leave that as is, but we could try to change the scale while we're here. We want it to overlap on the edges since we're just going to be rotating it. Something like that looks pretty good. Then we can head back into object mode, grab our new shape, go into edit mode, and we can just start rotating that. Make sure you hold down Control while you do it so you can get it flat. That looks pretty good. Perfect. And now the master controller down here is set up the exact same way, in the same orientation that is. So I'm going to put the same shape on that. Uncheck bone size and then just adjust your scale accordingly. Something a little bigger like that should be good. Let's make a controller for our IK poles. Back in object mode, we can add mesh circle. Put that up here about. Let's zoom in on this. I like to make like a kind of a ball shape for my IK poles, so I'm going to just move my 3D cursor over to here. Shift S, and we're going to do cursor to selected, and then we can create another circle, and this one we can rotate. Hold down Control while you do it so you can get it exact. Excellent. And then we can add one more. Mesh circle, and this one we can rotate in this way, again holding down Control to make sure it's exact. Now I've got kind of this little ball here. I'm going to select all of these, right click and join so that they're all one piece, and then let's call that pole shape. Click on your armature, go into pose mode. We can select our poles here. Custom object is going to be pole shape. Uncheck bone size, and let's make that a little smaller. Why don't we do? We'll do 0.4, I think. Excellent. We just have to turn on our layer 3 to see our IK arm poles. Excellent. While we're here, we should add a controller for our IK handles. What we can use is just the arm shape that we already have built here. And it doesn't need a position because it's already facing in a good orientation. Let's make it a bit smaller, maybe 0.5. No, a little bit bigger. Let's do, why don't we do 0.6 or 0.7 even, so it's a little easier to grab. We can do the same thing with the other handle over here. Let's make a shape for the feet next. Just going back into layer number 1. And we're going to, let's just create something that looks a little foot shaped. So when we go into object mode and add mesh circle, and it's going to add right there because that's where our cursor is, so just move that back. And let's get top view. Let's make like a little foot shape here. Let's go into edit mode. And I'm just going to grab this piece here, and we can move that right in, still with our proportional editing on. Let's make it a little smaller though. I just want to kind of make a little bit of a concave shape here. Something like that, and we'll do that on both sides. That looks pretty good. Let's rename that to foot shape. And then on our armature, we can select our foot controller, and we can add a custom object of foot shape, and do that on both of them. Let's uncheck bone size on both of these. We can adjust our scale a bit though. Just gonna eye it out, get it close to what you think it's going to be. 1.6 looks pretty good. And now we can do the rest of our changes just from the edit mode on this circle. Selecting all of the vertices. We need to rotate that. That looks flat, yep. And we need to move that as well. So we're going to scooch that backwards to get that about right there, and then let's scale that a little bit. We need to make it a little bit longer, and when we make it a bit wider while we're at it, which is going to be the z-axis. Looks good. Now we can select our armature again, and let's see, I think we've got pretty much everything. Why don't we make a different one for the head though real quick. I'd like to have a head controller that actually goes out and around his head. So it's just going to be basically a circle. Why don't we just kind of make it an oval though? Something like that I think will be fine. And we can name that head shape. Click on your armature. Go back into pose mode, and then let's select the head piece here, and let's actually just change that to head shape. Head dot position is still good for the position of it. As you can see, it's not quite the right shape, so let's go quickly back into object mode and then edit mode on this circle here, and let's change that a bit. We're going to scale that a little bit down. We're going to move that a little bit forward. And why don't we scale it outwards a little bit as well. I think something like that will be pretty good, easy to grab. I believe there's just one last thing we could make a shape for, and this one is a good one to do, the hand controller. Let's add a new mesh circle, put it right about there, and then let's just get ourselves a top view of that. And I'm just going to make kind of a rudimentary hand shape. So I'm going into edit mode, and I'm going to grab, why don't we grab this top piece here, and still with our proportional editing on, let's just kind of shape this out a little bit. This obviously isn't my best work, but we're just gonna do something very basic for this. We don't have to spend a lot of time on this. Something like that is fine, just a little bit of a mitten shape. And you can play around with that as much as you'd like. I'm going to rename that to hand shape. We're going to go into our armature and pose mode. And we're changing our hand controllers here. Hand shape, uncheck bone size, and this one's actually oriented correctly already. The other one is going to be upside down though, so we're going to have to change something to get that fixed. And all we have to do for that actually is, because this bone, the roll on this bone doesn't really matter, I can just go in here and change the roll to 180 degrees. That's in edit mode, and then just under the transform of the bone. And if we go back into pose mode, it should be facing the right way now. Perfect. Now that we've got a lot of our bones looking nice, and the ones that we've changed into custom shapes are really the only ones that we're going to need to change and grab and move when we're animating. So the rest of these, we really don't want our animator to ever be able to grab them or mess them up or move them, anything like that. So what we can do is just hide all of these. So in pose mode, because pose mode is the only place they'll be hidden, in edit mode you'll always be able to see all of your bones and none of the custom shapes will apply. But in pose mode, we can just hide a bunch of these. So let's just start selecting stuff here. Just start selecting all these bones that you can still see. These are all going to be ones that we want to hide. Okay, and just you can do this in a couple rounds here, but in viewport display under the bone properties, we want to check off hide, but if you've got multiple selected at the same time, you just make sure you hold down Alt when you do it so that they all get hidden at the same time. There we go. Let's go over to one of our other layers. We've got our FK bones here that we can hide as well. Excellent. And then we can go over to the last layer. Our IK bones, we don't need to be able to see those either. Perfect. Next, let's now that we've hidden a bunch of stuff and things aren't on top of each other, we don't really need all those different layers anymore so much. So let's grab a bunch of all of our IK pieces here, and let's move those back to the first layer. So with all of those selected, I'm going into relations. Right now they're on the third layer. I'm going to leave them on the third layer as well, but I want them to also show up on the first layer. So I can see everything all at once on the first layer, but then if I wanted to see them on their own, I could go to the third layer. So what I'm doing is holding down Alt so that all of these get affected by what I'm about to do, but I'm also holding down Shift so that I can add them on the first layer without removing them from the third layer. So Alt, Shift, and then click on that one. Go to the second layer and let's get our FK pieces showing up on the first layer as well. Again, holding down Alt and then holding down Shift and clicking on the first layer there. Now if we go into our first layer, we will see everything all in one place. And nothing's overlapping anymore because we have changed them all to shapes, we've changed sizes, all that kind of stuff. Now the way we have it set up right now, it's not looking great. What I would do if I was you is I would go through and adjust your scales of all of these guys. For the wrists, I might make it a little bit smaller. And so on and so forth. Just make it look nice for yourself and or your animator, and just make it nice and easy to look at and easy to grab and use. Next, let's just clean things up a little bit further. Let's grab all of our custom shapes here. Whoops, we got to go into edit object mode for that. Let's grab all of our custom shapes and let's put those in a collection together so that we can hide those and not have to look at those. You can actually delete these as well and it won't change the way that the bones look. These will still look that way, but I like to keep them around just in case I need to make changes to them. If I wanted to clean these up, for example, I like to keep them somewhere just hidden so that we can't see them. Now right now those are going to be under the model box. What we can do is add a new box, which should be showing up probably down at the bottom. Yep. And we can just, with all those selected, drag those down to collection 2. Let's rename this to custom shapes. Collapse that, and also collapse our model box. Let's just make sure this is within this main collection here. And then we can just click this little I button on the right side to make it not visible anymore. Now that we have done all of that, there is one last little piece of kind of a quality of life thing I like to do for my rigs. When I have an IK-FK arm rig, I like to make it so that when we have the slider set to FK, the IK tools, the IK controllers disappear, and then similarly if we have it set to IK, the FK controllers disappear as well, so that we don't have these controllers just floating out in space, getting in the way, and all of that kind of stuff. So what I want to do is go into your hand controller, and we have to go into pose mode for that. So I go in your hand controller, and we're going to go down to our IK-FK custom property here, right click on the slider, copy as new driver, and then let's start going into our pieces here. So we've got our IK pole. That's one of the things we're going to want to hide if it's on one side or the other. And what we're going to do is in our bone properties, we're going into viewport display, and we're going to right click on hide, and we can paste driver on this. So now when we change this to number 1, it's disappeared. Anything that's not number 1, it appears, right? So that makes it so if we're between IK and FK, if we're not at 0 or 1, everything will show up, which is convenient. But if we are set all the way to IK, then FK pieces will disappear. If we're set all the way to FK, IK pieces will disappear. So right now what we're doing is I just want to paste this as a new driver onto all of the FK and IK pieces, and then we'll go in and we'll change it so that when it is set to 0, which is IK, then all of the FK pieces will disappear, and then if it's set to 1, all of the FK IK pieces will disappear. So let's just go in and paste this onto hide for all of these pieces for now. Okay, same thing but for the custom property on this side. So just to confirm that we are looking at the right thing here, I just want to move my IK hand out to the side here. And we just want to adjust the IK-FK so we know with what is FK and what's IK. So now it looks as though we've got it set to be 0 is IK and number 1 is FK. So we already have the IK pieces disappearing when we've got it set to 1, so it's only the FK stuff we're going to need to change. So let's just kind of put it in the middle here for a second, and let's click on our FK piece, and now we need to edit this driver on hide, and we're going to do it the same way we did it with the averaging the bound arm between the IK and the FK arm. We're going to change this to scripted expression, and our expression is going to be ABS, open parentheses, IK-FK minus 1, whoops, close parentheses. Let's copy that. Update dependencies. Do the same thing for this piece. Scripted expression. And the same thing for the shoulder here. Scripted expression. Perfect. It's going to be the same thing for the pieces over here. So again, we could do the same thing just to test everything. Move this over here, and we can see that this being set to 0 is IK, and number 1 is going to be FK. So let's get our FK stuff edited. Doing the exact same thing, we're just changing all of these to scripted expression. Perfect. So now we can see when we switch back and forth between when we switch all the way to IK, our FK pieces disappear, and when we switch all the way to FK, our IK pieces disappear. I'm just going to move this guy back to 0, 0, 0 for its position. Same thing over here. Excellent. And this should be working the exact same way. And that'll do it. Thanks for watching, everyone. I know this one was a long one, but it is important to make your rig look nice and be accessible to all kinds of animators, and that makes it important to make it nice and clean like this. If you'd like, please feel free to take the time and just edit up all those custom shapes and everything, make them look any way that you'd like. You can make these look really nice if you'd like to. And I'll see you in the next video where we'll do a quick quality check, and then we'll skin our model to our skeleton, and our rig will be complete. Thanks everyone, I'll see you next time.